Well, welcome back to the Courageous Girls podcast. I'm your host, Tara Mattson, and I am walking you through my book, Courageous, Being Daughters Rooted in Grace, to really set the platform or the foundation, I guess would be a better word, for why we want to pursue our own health and wholeness as a mom or a mentor who's walking alongside other girls, because they're watching us. And so much of what we long for our girls is coming from our own stories, maybe the things we didn't get, maybe the things that went really well that we're trying to duplicate. But at the end of the day, our stories, our wirings, and our education around what we know is healthy and unhealthy is playing a role in how we're walking alongside our little girls. And we want to give them a fighting chance. I really long to see a generation of girls who know they are loved and love others well. You know, all the issues that girls are facing today really aren't new under the sun. They're just amplified because of the digital age. So I'm taking time to walk through my book, Courageous. Right now, if you're just jumping in and you want to catch up, we are working our way through. We're in chapter 3 on She Feels It to Heal It. It's such a cheesy saying, I know, but it's actually one that I learned in the trenches of being a trauma therapist, coming alongside men, women, couples, children, teens. I like variety, can you tell? But I'm a systems thinker. So I work with the whole. If I have a child, I want to work with the parents. If I have a wife, I want to work with her and her husband. But I have done a lot of individual work too. And in the confidential spaces, one of the things I've recognized is the consistent area of not knowing how to process our feelings. And most of the trauma work that we do, when we process our feelings, when we make room and give room to let our feelings have a voice and to give them just air to breathe, they actually move and they change. It's really remarkable from a neuroscience place as well as just a practical place. And honestly, my own journey with emotions isn't necessarily the healthiest. In looking back at my own journey, I share a bit in the book about my struggle with bulimia. And in high school to early college, I really wrestled with binging and purging and overexercising as a way of managing what I thought was more my outer appearance. I actually looked a lot like I do today. I was curvy, but I didn't have the confidence around my body type and my, again, was trying to keep up with the Joneses when it comes to all the messages we get in the Western culture. But what I found in my years of doing my own work and then walking alongside many others who have struggled with any sort of body image issues or any other maladaptive coping strategy like sex addiction, pornography, drinking, alcohol, workaholism, shopism, you name it. We've got a bunch of isms, right? At the end and underneath it, if you poke up or pull up the hood and you peek underneath, it's really an inability to process our emotions. In unhealthy systems, feeling emotions and expressing your emotions is either dangerous or unsafe, or we just don't have the tools. Even in relatively healthy, especially Christian homes, in the church, we haven't really done a lot of talking. And in some systems, we actually teach that emotions are dangerous. We misquote Jeremiah, which says that the heart is deceitful above all else. And we interpret the heart, which is not what the context of the Hebrew is understanding there, but we interpret that as our emotions. But if you go further on, when you think of the greatest commandment to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength, your body, your physical strength, to love him and to love others as you love yourself, it really helps us to kind of slow down and go, maybe our emotions actually have a role in how God designed us. So I'm going to read a little bit from chapter 3, and then you'll have to get the book and read it yourself if you want to hear all about it. But I'm going to read a little section on really the number one thing that we're working on throughout Courageous Girls is helping girls and moms to learn how to, one, identify our emotions, and then learn how to regulate, to care for them would be another way. Because when we care for our emotions, they can be a beautiful part of how we experience life, God, and others. They are a wonderful dashboard, a signal on the dashboard to help us understand what is going on. I think teaching us how to not fear our emotions, but to come to use them as part of the whole process of knowing who I am, mind, body, heart, and soul. So here we go. Let me read a little bit and then I'll give you a little bit more backdrop on maybe even some tools today, if I can give you more. If you've received messages from a dysfunctional family system that practices denial, it's important to know that we can retrain ourselves to recognize and regulate our emotions. Even if we have grown up with distorted views of negative emotions, we can learn to pay attention to what they tell us about our reality. For example, when we feel angry, we might notice that our jaws tighten or our hands start to clench. This kind of body awareness helps people learn their natural responses to the world around them. Sometimes children have a stomach ache when they're actually anxious. When we can identify the emotions, we can help them calm down. This is called self-regulating, a term that counselors use to describe how to be aware of one's feelings and meet a human need in a legitimate way. If I could pinpoint the one skill that I have needed to teach in my counseling practice more than any other skill, it'd be the ability to self-regulate. Before I explain how to develop this strength, I want to explain why feelings are so important. Healthy brain development and spiritual formation requires that we learn to process our feelings, especially when those feelings are more intense. A myth, and inadvertently taught by Christian families, is that faith is primarily related to what we think to be true. This rationale places primary importance on the frontal lobe, which is our upper brain, which is responsible for decision-making and rational thoughts. This assumption undermines the way God created humans and the importance of the amygdala, our lower brain, which plays a central role in our experience of emotions. Often this form of mind over matter stresses that we must not give in to our emotions. This teaching comes from the passage like Romans 12:2, the renewing of your mind, or 2 Corinthians 12 or 10:5, we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. Undoubtedly, these are powerful scriptures, and we will address those in the later chapter. However, framing faith as a primarily thought-based exercise causes us to cast our emotions in a negative light. Ultimately, this causes us to be compartmentalized and living and preventing full integration of all of who we are. The Lord wants all of us, our mind, our hearts, our body, and our actions. That includes our emotions. And there are 39 verses throughout the Bible that speak to loving God with our whole hearts. And there are many more verses that encourage us to love God with all of who we are. So one of the most well-known verses says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, Luke 10:27. And when we experience disconnection between our minds, our bodies, and our emotions, we need to pause, and we need to assess what's happening. And when I was a new mom, I lost my workout routine for a very good cause. However, without a way to regularly release stress, my irritation was flaring and my anxiety was rising. My body knew I could feel better if I could exercise a few times a week, but my mind kept telling me that I was a bad mom if I took time away from my daughters. My mind also told me that my lack of exercise was Jeff's fault because, well, there was no real reason, but I just needed to blame someone. Taking time to pause and reflect, I listened to what was happening inside my body, anxiety. Inside my emotions, there was irritation and bitterness. In my mind, a workout would help me, but good moms do not take time away from their babies to exercise, or so I thought. Doing so helped me work through the three wearing parts of myself before the Lord. I decided to comfort my body and emotions by making an exercise plan. My mind soon learned that Jeff was not standing in my way. My babies did fine without me there for 3 hours a week. And in fact, I was a better mom when I was with them because my regular exercise. It is not healthy to lead only with our emotions, nor is it healthy to lead only with our logic. Loving God with all of who we are requires integrating our emotions with our minds and our bodies. So How do we move in this direction? So I go on to share Dr. Siegel's hand model, which I demonstrate on a little video in the Courageous Girls curriculum and give practice to moms and daughters learning how to understand how their brains work and how their bodies work. So emotions were made in the image of God. God has emotions. And if God has emotions, then they're not sinful. What we see in scripture and what I unpack a little bit more is it's what we do with our emotions that can become sinful. It's when it says in Ephesians 4, it says, in your anger, do not sin. It doesn't say don't be angry, but a lot of us interpret that as don't be angry, especially if we've had that modeled in our family that anger is bad, or when people are angry, they do really hurtful things. There's so many passages around emotions where the scriptures are giving us a clear roadmap. And so one of the things is learning how your body works and how what Dr. Siegel calls when your lid is flipped. So he gives us the hand model, and the hand model is a beautiful way for us to learn when we are starting to get hijacked and we're going to likely do our best sinning, and how to keep our lids on. And as moms, if we learn how to do this well with ourselves, we do a better job of helping not only see it in our kiddos, but to help them along the way. So the hand model is this. The downstairs brain is where our amygdala and all of our sensory-oriented part of our brain is. And this is with us from the moment we're born. We are emotional beings when we're born, and we don't really get the upstairs part of our brain fully developed in the frontal lobe until ages 26 to 28. It has actually gotten further into adulthood since the digital age. There's a lot of reasons for that. So here's the deal. The downstairs brain, from the day that your child and you and your own story is mapping out your world through your five senses. What do you see? What do you smell? What do you taste? What do you hear? What do you feel? So when a baby feels scared or is hungry or sees something scary, and their emotions start to react to protect. And what happens is they will cry out, and how their world, whoever's their caretaker, takes care of them and that need gets met, they start to map out, is this a safe thing for me to do? Is it safe for me to cry when I'm feeling alone or when I'm hungry? Or am I going to get hurt and harmed? So the brain is mapping this out. It's mapping out everything through our sensory oriented place. So this is where our daughters need our outward appearance and how they experience the world to match the lessons we're trying to teach them. So if I say to my daughter, I love you, but I've got this really mean face, mad face, and I'm like, I love you. Can't even say it mean, but if I did, that's incongruent. And she's actually going to map out that posture in my face and the way that I came across in my tone more than the words that I said. So this is the constant piece of us working on awareness and how we show up in our room. Well, that downstairs brain has been mapping out life most of your childhood all the way through. And then eventually we get the frontal lobe. And the frontal lobe is responsible for our decision making, our A plus B equals C. So if you make me mad and I want to kick you, then my frontal lobe says that's probably not a good idea. And then I will likely send messages and keep my fight, flight, or freeze calm, and I won't kick you. But if my lid flips and the blood leaves the frontal lobe and moves into my downstairs brain, I'm literally flooded and I'm in fight, flight, or freeze. And I'm not going to be able to hear you. I'm not going to be able to make wise decisions. I'm definitely not listening to the Holy Spirit. At that point, I am in my protection mode. And so this lid flipping happens more often the more trauma we have had and the more sirens that go off through your signals, which trauma counselors call triggers. And that word gets used a lot. I mean, sure, even your daughters are using it now because it's mainstream language. But our body's picking up triggers all the time. And so sometimes our bodies will be hijacked and our brains start to flood and our lids flip. And we do or say things we don't want to in our flight, fight, or freeze. So we want to learn how to listen to the signals. Our emotions are coming in. Something is happening, slowing it down in order to be able to lead our emotions and to guide them. So there's lots of ways that we can calm our bodies. Some deep breaths, going for a walk, 5 senses. We have a lot of resources that we provide, and we really encourage you, mom, to figure out what's going to help you and then what's going to help your daughter. For me, I actually need to talk. So I will journal with God and I will process with a safe friend. I use Marco Polo as a way to verbally process and to get my brain calm. I exercise and go for a walk. If I can't get to like an actual helpful exercise, just moving my body actually will calm. And then I do a task that I can complete, like dishes or something that just feels really tangible. You need to figure out what you can do to calm your brain and to get your lid back on. It usually takes half hour and then, or longer. And then we start to teach our daughters, what do they need? And they, to be able to calm down and to identify. When we're calmer, then we want to do these 5 steps. And I'll leave you with this. First is name the emotion. What was I feeling? Can I give it a word? And us parents are always trying to help our girls mirror back what they think they might be feeling. They don't know. They're just learning in the process. So it might be you seem to feel sad, or you seem to be angry, or you seem to be anxious. So giving vocabulary, name it. Where was it in my body? I think I was anxious. Oh, you've said your tummy hurt. It was probably in your tummy. That's where you feel anxious. And then if anxious could talk, what would anxious say? Give it a voice. And then giving yourself or your daughter a chance to really say all the things that emotion wanted to say. Usually you're going to hear a need that wasn't getting met. And it helps us identify, how do we help meet a need that's God designed in a very legitimate way instead of in an illegitimate way, which is what we do in fight, flight, or freeze. Number 4 is, what does that need to calm down? Sometimes it's, I need a truth. I need to remember a truth. Sometimes it's actually a practical resource. Like, I just really need to know the plan for this week. I'm really anxious about how things are going to go. And I really need to know what is the plan. So information helps calm down my anxiety. The last but not least is to advocate for that need. Most women and girls have a really hard time with this one. We might know what we need. I really need to call my friend and just have a conversation. I need a friend to listen, but I don't want to burden her, right? Like, those are the things that we do. And so this last one is kind of sometimes the hardest, is to actually advocate for that need, to go do what I need to do to calm down and care for my own emotions. I'm responsible for that. And our girls are learning this and we're coaching them. So we practice this throughout Courageous Girls, from 2nd grade all the way to senior year. If your daughter is outside that window of time and she's little, or she's a young adult, or an older adult, you're going to definitely still be able to use these tools. But my challenge for you between now and the next time you step into the podcast is to see if you can start naming your emotions when they show up, where they are in your body. Can you give them a voice? Maybe ask if even the Holy Spirit, like, what do I need right now? And coming up with some clear, healthy ways that you can meet that need. And then advocate for that. This takes time and it takes practice. And to this day, I started this journey in my 30s and I am now, in my late 40s, and I am still working on this, but I'm way better. Like any other muscle, it just takes time and consistency and practice, and the willingness to step in and to do this. So, mamas, we got to practice this first. And then our girls will not only be able to see how we do it, but then be able to teach them, actually give them tangible tools. So what a joy to have you join me. This one's a little bit longer episode for the Courageous book, chapter 3 on She Feels It to Heal It. Until next time, I am so grateful you're on this journey. You are the mom that God has chosen to walk with your daughter or your daughters. And I am so grateful that you've said yes to intentionally pursuing her heart every step of the way. So you're ready to start your Courageous Girls group? Good. Go to mycourageousgirls.com or download the Courageous Girls app. And what you're going to do is you're going to register, and then you have access to all the curriculum. If you want to start your group, you're going to pray, Lord, who do you want me to start this with? Reach out for 1 to 2 other mamas and begin praying and asking God to show you. You really only need 5 to 8 of you with daughters that are around the same ages. So if you're going to start in 2nd grade, 2nd and 3rd grade, if you're going to start in 6th grade, 5th and 6th grade, you don't want to have a huge break there. But go to mycourageousgirls.com. We've got coaching information for you. And really, you start your group and you each are going to lead 1 time a month throughout the year. So really, if you've got 5 people in your group, you'll lead maybe once or twice a year. This is created for busy moms to help you walk and talk with your daughter at every stage of your growing years. This curriculum is so unique in that it's biblically, clinically, and relationally attuned to what girls are needing today. And I am your trusted guide. I've written all the curriculum. I've walked through it with my own girls, and I think you are ready for this. If you are nervous, that's normal. Part of this journey is trusting that God uses your yes and your trust that He will do the rest.